Last time I spoke about my gender on my YouTube channel, I gave a very different answer to the one that I'm going to give today. I actually think I got my gender wrong. So for those of you who don't know me, I am a makeup artist. I'm based in Manchester. I've been doing makeup for about 15 years and I run a feminization makeover service called Wow Gals. And with my work at Wow Gals, I've been doing for about 6 years now. I work with people across the whole gender spectrum, but my speciality is feminization. And people come down basically to me and we give them a makeover. I say we, me, I do everything. I give them a makeover, turn them into their most, wildest feminine fantasies, and we take pictures all day, we kiki, we laugh, but we spend a lot of time talking about gender identity. It's a big hot topic, and it's something that I've spent pretty much my entire adult life obsessing over, thinking about, talking about, and I'm going to be talking about it today. So 4 years ago, I uploaded this video to my YouTube channel saying, am I transgender or am I gender fluid? Gender confusion. And my conclusion was at the time that I'm gender fluid. Well, snap forward 4 years, I think I have made a bit more of a commitment to the fact that I'm transgender. And I want to watch this video back now and react to the things that I'm saying because I think it's going to be dead interesting. So I'm going to put my little headphones in and let's have a little listen to what I had to say and what I think about those things now. Okay, so let's see what Patrick had to say about his journey.
Hi, my name is Patrick.
Oh my good
I'm a
Lord.
27-year-old.
Right, I've not watched this video in, I think, since I recorded it and uploaded it. Oh my good Lord. For those of you who've not seen me pre-transition, I mean, it's a jump scare enough to see my forehead, but seeing everything, like how thin I was, yeah, I look very different. I'm not someone who's afraid of like looking at old pictures of myself or like pre-transition stuff because it's part of my life. It's part of my like identity. Well, not my identity, but it's part of like my journey and who I am and who I've become today. But it is always a bit like jarring seeing it. And also my old bedroom doesn't look like that anymore. It's full of stuff.
Makeup artist, and
Let's
I
see what I
live
have
in
to say.
Manchester in the UK, and I am gender fluid. I think a lot of people
Gender fluid,
struggle
I said.
to understand what gender fluid means, and to be honest with you, I did for a very long time. And I wanted to make a little video talking about it and talking about my journey as
It's always funny watching old stuff of me and seeing like how my mannerisms have never changed.
chooses that phrase is, and how that relates to me coming to the comfortable conclusion and happy decision to name myself gender fluid. So what does being gender fluid mean? For me, and for my personal definition, and disclaimer here, I'm not gonna say that I am a gender expert by any.
I disagree with that now. I think I am a gender expert now. And I think that that person needed the past 4 years and needed to go through all of the lockdown stuff and all the clients that I've spoken to and the sheer amount of information that I've absorbed over these past couple of years about gender to really get to the point that I'm at today.
Means I'm not someone who's written books and theories about gender,
There are lots of
but I
books
am
and
someone
theories.
who's come across lots of people on the gender spectrum, and I'd like to think that I have a good bit of knowledge about it.
I do.
I'm sure those.
Fun fact that the scar or the red scar on my forehead was actually a curling iron burn. I was curling a wig on my head and I burnt my forehead.
Trolls will tell me differently though. But for me, gender fluidity is about being neither male or female, and both male and female, or neither masculine and feminine and both masculine and feminine.
See, it's interesting because I don't completely disagree with this point. And that's something I want to come to a little bit after we've watched this video. That at this point in my life, I don't think I'm gender fluid. But I'm 100% I'm not male. And Yes, I have a body that was assigned male at birth, and I am probably biologically male, according to a lot of people. But I don't identify with being a man. And anyway, I want to just watch
I
more.
think the bases of it are that gender and sex are different.
Yes.
Sex is a little bit more binary, I guess. It's a bit more black and white. And gender is, if you think of it more like a dimmer switch. So if sex is like a flicker switch, your gender is your dimmer switch. You can turn that up.
Although, again, I will caveat that and say that when I say sex is like a flicker switch, I think that we understand nowadays that it's a little bit more complicated than that, and that it's not just XXXY. Like there are more people with different like chromosomical like situations going on in their bodies. There are obviously intersex people, and like it's a lot biologically. It is more deep than just male and female.
And you can turn it down, and it's a glorious, beautiful sliding scale where everybody sits sort of somewhere in that scale. You'll get some people who sit really far at one end and some people who sit really far on the other end, between masculine and femininity.
Yes.
I think my story starts as a young gay teenager growing up in Northern Ireland, which I know my accent doesn't sound like it, but I am actually, well, I grew up at least in Northern Ireland. I didn't really understand my gender very well, and I grew up with a very feminine influence around me, and I was surrounded by femininity. Even the male characters in my life were all quite feminine, I guess. Any situation where I came across any masculine energies, it always felt a little bit negative to me. Growing up in Northern Ireland wasn't a walk in the park, especially for a young queer kid who had a bit of a British accent. I had some difficulties, but I think as much difficulties as anybody who is other in a small town. And Northern Ireland is very much, they have like a real small town mentality, and that's fine.
They do.
It
still does.
But for me, I couldn't wait to get away and to escape. And I used to turn to makeup and to music and
Little baby me. It's really lovely looking at these pictures because those moments that I had of like hyperfemininity when I was a teenager were just so glorious, but also filled with angst, filled with like disappointment, I think, as well, because I wanted to look a certain way and I couldn't achieve it. I remember like wanting to be able to wear like casual feminine clothes and struggling with it because my body didn't look right in them, and feeling really uncomfortable with so many things.
to hair and to clothes.
Oh my god. I think we need to talk about this. Oh my good lord. I haven't seen this picture in a long time. Okay, so when I first started doing drag, my drag name was Sahara Dolce. And I love music that isn't in English. And I love Latin music, and I used to listen to a lot of women who were like of like Latin origin. And again, this is from a different time, and I appreciate now that this like cultural appropriation is not okay. But back then, like it just wasn't really a thing that was in the general conscious amongst people. So I was very kind of like almost like a bit of like a flamenco dancery kind of thing going on, and I loved this wig, and I loved that big like flower in my hair, and I mean I'm wearing like a similar lip right now, but I'm not trying to like appropriate any cultures anymore. But that was look at me, I must have been about 16 at the time, and
clothes and fashion, all that kind of stuff when I was younger as a means of escape. And it was amazing. I remember the very first...
It wasn't about escape. It wasn't about escape.
I remember the very first time I ever saw a picture of a drag queen, And it was in my sister's bedroom. She had all these pictures
Cherry
around
Lane.
her mirror. And she'd been to Liverpool and she'd seen this drag queen, Cherry Lane. I remember seeing it and being like, wow, what's
There's no
that?
funny
And she was like,
pictures in here of Cherry Lane.
that's a drag queen. It's like, what's a drag queen? So that's a man, he's wearing makeup. And she used to wear this gorgeous, like, it was like a big panel of white and
There she
all
is.
these like crazy colours and just the most amazing makeup. And I was like, it's just telling me all these stories of Liverpool and all these drag queens that she'd met. And I just thought it was the most amazing thing I'd ever heard. And it was like that
My hands
moment
flapping around in the background.
when all the colour flooded
Honestly.
into my life. And it was like everything had been in black and white and suddenly was in colour. It was amazing.
Do you know what's really funny is that I tell the story all the time. And it's like, I still will tell the story the same way.
Just the most exciting moment for me. And I was like, that's exciting, but it's scary because people tell you that you shouldn't be doing anything like that and that you should sort of flee away from it. So I guess I sort of pushed some of those thoughts to the back of my head that I
My
wanted to
old
do stuff like
nose.
that. And I kind of continued on with life. And then I met my best friend, Anton, and I met...
This is so funny. The picture of me and Anton. That picture, just pull it back. Again, I looked like such a baby. I was probably 16. When we took that, when that picture was taken, that bolero that Anton's wearing in this picture we made, and we started like making clothes, and he was very much like he was the one making all the clothes and stuff, and I was just like helping out, but there was so much drama and anger and like fighting over that thing. And I even remember the sunglasses. We bought them off this like Canadian woman in the mall in Belfast, and yeah, and we went to Mint, it would have been called back in the day, in Belfast, and
I met my then boyfriend at the time, Carl, as well, who helped, the three of us have helped each other nurture all of those feelings.
the Dolce sisters. Oh my god, this picture as well. But it's so funny looking back on old pictures of like us in drag, because this looks terrible. Like, they look so bad. The makeup, the hair, everything is like shockingly bad. But maybe I'm just like deluded, because I think that the other queens in Belfast at the time thought, or like other people saw us and think we looked good. We didn't. We really didn't. And again, I remember that dress, the PVC thing Anton made. And then my black and white dress. I loved that black and white dress so much. I got that from like a quiz type of kind of place. But you could not tell me at that time that I did not look like a biological woman. And then Anton's makeup is
Emotion
just
that I started meeting a lot of like-minded people who like...
I could tell you so many stories about each and every single one of these pictures, but I'm not going to. We're just going to keep going through it.
To, you know, look a bit different. And I started to, you know, find my tribe and meet people who were a little bit more like me and who weren't interested in the normal sort of stuff and wanted to mess around with their gender roles. And it was a really pivotal moment, I think, in my early life. Once I left school, I went to university in Manchester. That only lasted for like a year and a half. I got kicked out my second year, but that's a whole other story. But then while I was at university, I started working on a makeup counter for a brand called Ilamasca, which was a British, like, quirky makeup brand. Their brand motto at the time was "Makeup for your alter ego," and they really championed people experimenting with their makeup and experimenting with gender. And I felt like I had found my home. I honestly felt for the first time in my life that I was really being...
I did, but the interesting thing, looking back on it now, is that, I don't know if I mentioned this or not in this video, but like when I first came to Manchester and I was really experimenting with my gender and being really like quirky with stuff, and it wasn't necessarily about trying to look like a woman, but I mean, it really wasn't about trying to look like a woman, but I just remember wishing like I could, wishing that I could, but it was almost like this rebellion because my body didn't feel correct. And so whenever I tried to look how I wanted in that sort of like more like feminine, like hyper female kind of thing, it just didn't feel right, because I'm tall, I'm gangly, and like I would try and put like a nice like frock on, and it just wouldn't fit and it would look stupid and like it didn't feel right. So it was like, rather than doing that, I'm going to do the exact opposite of that and I'm going to make myself look really weird. And I think that that's what that was all about. It was about this, like, I want to be able to look like this. I want to look soft and pretty and be able to just like have the body that I feel comfortable in, but I can't. And I don't think I talk about why I couldn't. I say I couldn't in this video, but I'll get to that at the end of the video if I don't mention it here.
Nurtured in the right ways. So
This music is intense.
I went wild. I went wild with like colour.
Yeah, I did.
Went wild with clothes and the way that I looked and party.
That picture. Oh, that picture of me, Frank, and Andrew. That's such a fun. I'll tell the story very quickly. That was at a nightclub called Bollocks, which was in Legends, which was the most amazing venue ever in Manchester. And the funny thing is I don't remember how that picture being taken at all. But the day after, or either the day or like 2 days later, I was in my induction in Selfridges, and Frank came up to me and said, "I think I took a picture with you the other night," and showed it to me. My eyes are pointing in different directions. I don't know why they were looking like that at all. He showed it to me and I was like, oh wow. And we giggle about it quite often now.
Colour beforehand, it was even more in colour. This time it was in like neon colours. It was the best, most exciting moment.
Oh my god, dying.
You know, finding Illamasqua and starting to work on the makeup counter and experimenting with the way that I looked. And then things took a bit of a change.
Oh, the sad music.
And everything started to become about targets and money and business and making business decisions. And my career took over. And
God, I was so naive when I was younger about business and making money and sales and stuff like that. And I just thought that I could just go on my makeup counter and do makeup and not have to worry about selling anything to people.
I took a bit of a step away from everything that I really, really loved. I stopped wearing makeup and I was like, no, it's fine. I'll just push all of that out, out of the way and push all that to the back of my head. And I started to want to make myself fit in, I guess, a little bit more. And I was happy about that at the time. I was really happy about it because I felt like...
Do you know what's really sad about this picture? So this picture was taken at a makeup masterclass that was part of the salon that I was working for. On the left of me, you've got one person that you might recognise, and the other girls are all people who we worked with at the salon at the time. And they are all lovely, lovely people. But I just never really gelled with any of them. And if I bumped into them now, I talk to them and I get on with them. But I really, really desperately wanted to be friends with them. But I was just like this outcast. They were like the cool kids, and I felt like I wasn't. And I think I know why. And it's because I was really trying to push like myself into a mold that I didn't fit in. And I mean, I almost like laugh looking at myself with this big curly tash in a suit. And like, it just didn't make sense. And I was trying to do a thing that I didn't really want. And like, don't get me wrong, like I love suits, I love tailoring and stuff. And I sometimes I miss my mustache as well because it was kind of cunty. But I am the biggest believer in when you're not being authentic to yourself. Like the people around you aren't going to get you, or you might, or you're not going to find the right people. And at the time, I wasn't being authentic to myself at all, and I was trying very hard to be like serious makeup artist, serious MUA, and failing, quite frankly, trying to like do a thing. And it just makes me sad because I remember this picture being taken and feeling like the spare part on the end of the picture, and I looked like it.
My career was really taking off and I was working loads as a makeup artist and I was really happy about it. And I still am really happy about it, of course.
Yeah. But when I'm saying all this, like I thoroughly enjoyed every aspect of my career and like the people that I've worked with, like and the people that I work with pre-opening Wow Gals and doing all my pageant stuff, like I've met some incredible people who I'm still really good friends with now. And I'm not like meaning any ill will on anything or anybody. I'm just like stating a fact that I at the time was trying to like be someone who I'm not. And
the time I guess those urges and those desires to be colourful and to be to like muck about with my gender, they were always there and they were always in the back of my head. It's something that never goes away. And it's really funny how now that my life has changed so much, I hear people say that to me all the time. Everyone always talks about how it's something that just never goes away. And I really, really, truly understand.
It really doesn't. And like all my clients I speak to through Wow Gals, like we all have these running themes of like purging clothes, throwing things away, like, you know, trying to butch up or masculinize or like go down like a different pursuit of trying to be someone who we're not. And then we inevitably end up coming back to it and like coming back to that desire of being more feminine. And I can imagine that it happens like on the flip side as well of like people who want to be more masculine. In fact, I know it does.
That now because I had moments of, I think I remember once I'd left Ilamasca and I was working as a freelance makeup artist. I remember throwing all my, you know, all my feminine clothes out, throwing all my dresses, throwing wigs out, and wanting to have nothing to do with that because I was a serious makeup
I had
artist.
such nice
I was going
stuff
to
and I
take
threw
it
it all
seriously
away.
as a makeup artist. I wasn't going to do makeup on myself anymore, and I was going to cut my hair really short and present really masculine. And I started wearing suits all the time. I went through a phase of wearing like just grey
Like I was
head
just
to
talking
toe
about.
and wanting to look a bit more fashionable and a bit more cool because I realised that the suits were making me look about 20 years older. And
It's cringe so much at the idea of me trying to look fashionable and what I was wearing. I mean, yeah.
I really wanted to like fit in with this idea of what I thought everyone thought I should be. And then again, time goes on and things start to change, and I came in and out of relationships. I was in a great relationship, which was obviously a relationship that had its toxicity. And one of the problems in that relationship was that my partner at the time wasn't really fully supportive of me wearing makeup, of me dressing in women's clothes. And there were a couple of times when my friends had asked me to go out in drag, dressed up, and for like nights out. And I did because it was really fun. And I think in our like 2-year relationship, I did it twice. And it was a disaster. And it always ended in tears on both parts for a whole number of reasons. It wasn't just like, he's a great guy and he's got absolutely nothing against drag and drag queens or people dressing however they want to, but that was all fueled by lots of different things in our relationship, and it's a very, very long story. And that led to lots of purging of clothes and feeling very, very guilty about wanting to dress in a more feminine way or present more femininely. And I had so many issues because of it. Cut to now, I'm in a great relationship where my partner supports me fully. And as much as I love him, even
I really did. And it's crazy that you would think in a queer relationship that those wouldn't be issues. But I think that queer people have just as much like anxiety and issues around masculinity and femininity and stuff like that, as like cis people do. So you would think that like two gay men being in a relationship, that if one of them wanted to do drag, the other one would just support it like without questioning it, but it's not always the case. um and it wasn't at the time, unfortunately.
without him now, I know that I would be much more comfortable in my own gender, and having the support of someone, having the support of your family is really, really great. And I've come on leaps and bounds. At the start of 2019, I started my business Wow Man, which is a makeover service that focuses on feminization. And
It's funny that I mentioned Wow Man then. We'll get to that in a second. Yes, my lovely ex, who I was with whenever I filmed this video, he's a fucking sweetheart, such a nice guy. We're not together anymore now, and I have a different partner who I love very, very much, and we both are in pretty much the same boat with our gender identities, so we can understand each other a lot more. But we separated, to be honest with you, not that long after I filmed this video because of a whole bunch of different reasons. We were very in love, but it was one of those, like, it's not really going anywhere kind of situations. But I think ultimately we both knew, without having to speak on it, what I needed to do. And we spoke about it after we broken up. I was like, "Hi, I've transitioned now," and he said, "Yeah, yeah, no, I knew that was going to happen." And I think that's why we kind of broke up, wasn't it?
Started my business Wow Man, which is a makeover service that focuses on
God, these pictures are all
feminization.
so old.
And I can't even begin to tell you how much it's changed my life and how much of a happier, more
Really
confident
has.
person it's made me. Once I had started doing Wow Man and working from home and
So yes, I want to address the fact that my brand used to be called Wow Man, and I changed it because when I transitioned, I thought, well, why doesn't my brand have a transition? And I changed all the branding, I changed the name and everything because it just felt more. It just made more sense. I from the beginning of starting the Wow Gals, I referred to all my clients as my Wow Gals, and so it just made sense.
getting loads of new feminine clothes, I realized that I could use myself as the canvas. So, kind of
That's true.
reluctantly at first, was like, right, well, I guess I should start doing this again. And, putting wigs on, putting makeup on, and, taking pictures of myself. And at first, it was very much, I'd put the outfit on, I'd do my makeup, and then the second I was finished, I'd want to take it all off, and I'd be like, right, okay, this is just for work, and I'm justifying that I'm doing this for work, I'm doing this for my job, to get content. And then as time passes, I realise how much I missed it, and I realised how much I missed
True.
the glamour of it all, and feeling beautiful. For so long, I hadn't looked in the mirror and really loved what I saw back. And I think being able to see that again and to have that moment with myself was really beautiful. And it's something that I really, really wish everybody could have. And everyone can have that moment of literally just looking in the mirror and thinking, holy I look amazing. Because it's so important. And obviously not everything in life is about looks, and everything.
It's really not hard. Shit. I was gonna say it's hard to watch this. It's not hard to watch it. It's actually, if anything, it makes me really happy. But I think just like hearing myself saying I hadn't felt beautiful in so long. It's so true. It's so true. And I've come along so far in the past couple of years that it's such a foreign like idea to me of like hiding my femininity. And I mean, you can see back then I was still like a flamboyant gay guy, but there was a lot of stifling going on, like a lot of internalized, not hatred, but like just trying to be more what I thought I should be. And
In life is about looks, and everything. There is so much more in life to looks, but I just think it's so important to be able to appreciate how you are physically. And
oh no.
over the past however many years, I've struggled a kind of, I guess, secretly and quietly, and I don't think I've ever told anyone about it. And I had a conversation with my sister a while ago on the phone, where I actually like spoke these words for the first time, and now I'm doing it on freaking camera. And this, by the way, was all started because I made a big post on Facebook about being gender fluid. But I spoke to my sister about how I had struggled for a very long time with whether or not I was a trans woman.
Oh fuck.
And I had been in a relationship with a trans woman for a long time, which is a whole other story, which we'll get to one day.
Don't need to tell that story.
So when I was with her, I mean, all of those thoughts of my own were completely pushed out the window because, she took priority. And I think any time I'd ever had those thoughts before, it was very much, oh, okay, well, this is how I feel, but my mum would never accept it. As loving and as wonderful and supporting she is, I think it would be too much for her. And also, I'd never look, how I wanted to. And they were all...
That's the point. That's the thing. And I think that was still the thing at this point. That was still the thing at this point, that I'm never going to look how I want, and my mum's never going to accept me. And I got there. I got there with my mum. I got there with myself and how I look. I mean, don't get me wrong, like, there's things that I'd like to change about how I look now, but from that point, in the video to where I am now, leaps and bounds, like, more comfortable and happier with everything, of like how I look and how I feel. And oh god, it's really weird watching this.
All these other thoughts and emotions that were there surrounding it all. And what if I made the wrong decision was a big question. But I think the fact that I was thinking about it says a lot. And
yeah, no shit.
What I really struggled with was this idea of an end goal. Because whenever I did think about, do I want to transition? Do I want to live full time as a woman? Do any of those things matter to me? What it always came back to was, well, what would the end goal be? There isn't an end goal. Because for a lot of my friends who are trans, they have something in mind that they would want, to happen, whether it's a surgery.
Hello. Yes, I have had surgery. I, at that point, how do I explain this? I don't want to say I didn't want surgery. But I don't think I ever considered it because it seemed so unobtainable. I tell you one thing I had considered at that time, and I nearly went for it, was a hair transplant, and I wish I had, because my hairline still looks like that. And that's fine, because it's not the worst thing in the world, but my hairline is like a big issue for me, hence the fringe. But it seemed so unachievable, unobtainable, the thought of surgery, because it's expensive. One of the main things that prevented me so much from thinking about transitioning was that I have no lower dysphoria. And when I say lower dysphoria, I mean what's in between my legs. Has never caused me any issues. And I know that for a huge percentage of trans people, their gender dysphoria really is focused around their genitals. And it never was for me, never has been, I don't think ever will really change. However, I have dysphoria about every single other aspect of me. So I thought, well, I can't be trans because I don't want to have gender reassignment surgery. However, I want to change everything else about me. And I think that, again, as a bit of time passed and I started speaking to other trans girls who were in a similar boat to me, I realised that I am trans.
Whether it's, a couple of years worth of hormones, and it tends to all be around something more physical. And I had always thought, well, I don't think that is for me. And also, anything that I did think that was for me, I always thought wasn't achievable. And I was like, I can't afford surgery, I can't afford this.
It's so funny, like, hearing me say this in this video of me literally explaining that I want all of these things, but I can't do it.
And I didn't think about it for a very, very long time. So these were thoughts that I had when I was very, very young and I first started doing drag and dressing in feminine clothes. And I just pushed all those thoughts to the back of my head.
Yep.
There's no point thinking about it. So along comes the past year and a half, and I've been presenting in a more feminine way a lot more. So it's been on my mind a lot more. And I've had a lot of pivotal moments in all of this.
Not enough.
And I thought for about 6 months, okay, I'm going to have to do it. This is it. I'm going to have to transition because I can't live like this. And I struggled for a while about it all. And I really... This is very difficult to talk about. I was really struggling to understand where I sat and everything and trying to figure things out. My head was a muddle, I guess. But I had a bit of an epiphany moment, though, at one point, where I realised I was putting far too much pressure on myself. And I realised that it was really unhealthy.
Yeah, it was unhealthy.
And I was giving myself this sort of ultimatum that I had to do something and that something had to be done, and I needed to think of an end goal and what that end goal wanted to be. And the more I thought about how I was, sort of doing this to myself, and I was saying, like, you need to be like this person, you need to be like that person, you need to follow this person's journey, I realised I don't fit into any of that. And the reason I don't fit into any of that is because this is, sounds so fucking pretentious, but this is my journey.
I still completely agree with that. However, I did end up finding people whose journey like reflected mine a lot more, and I think that was the moment that I was like, oh, okay.
And I am so different to everybody else because everybody has a different journey. Don't get me wrong, there's lots of people who have very similar journeys.
God, girl.
But
I
essentially,
needed some
everyone's a
Botox.
little bit different. At the end of last year, there was a period where I ended up having a lot of interviews with people just about random different stuff. And I was talking a lot about me, which is something I hadn't done for a long time. And they were talking about me in relations to my gender. And they kept asking me, how do you define yourself? And I was
I don't know what interviews I'm talking about.
I don't know. I'm not
I know
trans,
it's very
was
popular.
the first thing I would always say. But and I'm not a drag queen.
Obviously, because the first thing you do when you're trans and someone asks you about your gender identity is say, I'm not trans. I'm not trans.
Drag queen. And they're like, okay, so you're
That's true.
gender neutral, you're gender non-binary. It's like, no, I'm not any of those things. I'm just me. I'm just the guy who likes to wear makeup and who likes to wear
But
feminine clothes. And great. I think at the end of the day, that's what it is. But then when delving a little bit deeper into all of that and thinking how it relates to my gender, it's not just as much about wanting to wear women's clothes, because if I wanted to wear women's clothes, I'd happily sit here right now in a dress.
no, I sat here in a dress right now. No, for me, it never has been about clothes, and it still isn't really about clothes. It's always been about my body, and it's going to be interesting to see what I say here now. But for me, it's always been about my body, and a lot of it really is about my face. And I think that that's probably because like I do makeup, and but it's been about like this part of me. And then as I started my transition and I realized that it was possible, and I kind of actually like for the first time ever really focused on my actual physical like rest of my body, I was like, oh, hang on, I do feel a lot of like dysphoria with the rest of my body.
But I wouldn't. I'd feel very strange if I was just sat here with no makeup on and a dress. And people who I talk
I would
to
now.
who are really interested
no,
in
that's
the
not true, 'cause I do.
clothes, I often think I don't have anything in common with you, because as much as I love the clothes, it's not about the clothes. It's about me. That's about my gender.
Sure.
And it's about wanting to feel beautiful. I wanting to look back in the mirror and see what I want to see, but when I want to see it, I guess. Because sometimes I look in the mirror, I think, hey, I look like a really hot guy today. And I really like that. And that was
I don't think I ever did.
always the niggling thing in the back of my head that made me think that I'm definitely not trans. Because how could I possibly look in the mirror and think, okay, I look like a nice guy today? But also how...
Well, do you know what, actually, let's talk about that, because yes, I did have those moments. It would be stupid to deny that I didn't, because I definitely looked in the mirror, and especially if I had a good suit on, and like I am attracted mostly to masculinity. So it would be obvious that I would look in the mirror and be like, oh yeah, like, because like I'm attracted to that. Um, but I don't think I ever looked in the mirror and saw like a masculine, like, saw myself looking masculine and was like associating with that or like connecting with that, if that makes sense. I could appreciate that I looked good, but it wasn't like, oh hey, that's me.
I look in the mirror and think I look like a really beautiful woman today, and love that, and love both. And I realised that I was just beating myself up about absolutely nothing. And that I was making up all these reasons to beat myself up over absolutely nothing. And it was really quite ridiculous. And once I had that moment of realisation that I was creating all these problems for myself because I was still thinking my old mindset that you have to be male or you have to be female and there's nowhere in between. And the more I realised that there is a in between and I can be more than happy in the in between, I realised that it was beautiful and that it was great, and that's exactly what I wanted, and I am happy.
Yes, I still agree with that. Like, there is an in-between and people can exist in the in-between. But I kind of had to like spend a bit more time in the in-between to realise that I leant more towards the feminine. Once I finish this video, like I want to just elaborate a little bit more on like how I feel currently. But I don't 100% disagree with this.
Great, and that's exactly what I wanted, and I am happy in myself, and I am happy being somewhere in between. I'm happy being both male and both female, and I'm happy being neither male and neither female. And it is so goddamn empowering to say that I am Patrick Baston.
Yeah.
And I am gender.
I don't like that at all. Oh, that's really weird. I hate hearing my dead name. I just and especially hearing me say it. Very few people who will call me that name now. I don't really think of anyone. I can't really think of anyone who does. And
Fluid. Like, how simple is that? Why did I not think this before? Society loves putting labels on people, but we like putting labels on people so we can understand things a little bit better. When you're putting the wrong labels on people, I think there's something wrong with that. But for me, I think at least if you can find a label that fits for you and that makes you feel really happy, then that's great. But if you can't find a label that fits with you, don't worry. It's not the end of the world. Because your journey and your life is so valid. And that you...
Ugh. I hate that valid thing. Shut up, old me.
Your gender is
young me, I
okay.
should say.
But as long as you're happy, then sod everybody else, you know? I'm really, really happy now. Because
I wasn't. Sorry, disclaimer. I actually wasn't happy. And I remember making this video and like feeling elated and happy about making the video. But I think it was because I was getting closer to that point that I'm at now. And by like admitting this and saying and like acknowledging things about my gender, it was just like a step closer. And that wasn't a conscious thing. It wasn't like a conscious, like, I'm going to make this video because I know it's going to be a step closer to finally coming out and saying like, hi, I'm a woman. But it felt like, felt really freeing, really, to talk about just gender in general. So that's what I think was making me happy at the time.
Who I am. And it's taken a long fucking time to get here.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah. I thought so many times about what I was going to wear.
Right, I think that's the end of the video. You can go and watch that video if you want to and like scrutinize over it. But I'm going to make some final thoughts. Where am I at today? So, let me take this out. Like, the idea of gender fluidity for me, I think still kind of applies to me in the sense of I fluctuate in my presentation. Like today, when I'm on this, filming this video, I'm very I'm giving hyper femininity. 80% of my life, I'm not giving hyperfemininity. I spend my life in jeans and a t-shirt in like a femme way rather than in like a masculine way. And so I think that my gender fluidity now is like a narrower spectrum. So if beforehand I was kind of going from, well, say masculinity's here and femininity's here, if I was kind of going like between here, because I was never really all the way here, now it's more like here. And I'm really comfortable with that currently. Who knows what's going to happen in the future? I kind of think I do. And I don't think I'm going to change my mind. So hopefully this isn't foreshadowing. Like, there was a lot of foreshadowing in that video. And hopefully in another 4 years' time, I'm not making another one of these saying, I got it wrong again. But I don't think I was completely wrong in that video. I think that looking back on it now is really interesting because for the past like 3 years, I've been thinking, oh God, there's that video on YouTube about me talking about being gender fluid and I'm not. And there's like the comment on someone had left there 2 years ago being like, hi, I'm not gonna say it, but hi, but old name, in brackets, Patty now. And I don't think I was completely wrong in what I was saying in that video, but I've definitely grown. And I think that me going through a more physical transition to then be gender fluid, and like, I think that I needed to do that because I fixed the things that gave me gender dysphoria. I fixed the things about my face that gave me gender dysphoria and about my body that gave me gender dysphoria. And now I'm in a place where I can be more fluid without having to have those lows of like feeling really overly masculine. And now if I want to have moments where I want to feel more masculine, my gender still feels correct. Whereas I think beforehand there was almost this like performative thing going on and trying to perform the masculinity. But now it's like I can play around with my gender and my fluidity in a way that's so much more comfortable with me because my body feels correct. And I don't think I'd realised that quite at the time. It wasn't until my body started changing because I was taking hormones, I realised that I wanted it to happen more. And I made that happen. Now, how did I get to that point where I wanted to transition? Having conversations with other people who were in a similar boat to me. And our society has come along so far in terms of understanding of gender. Obviously, there's a huge portion of people out there who don't get it. But we're not talking about that today. And we understand that it's not as binary. And you can still have like... You can still have a penis and be a woman, and you can still have a vagina and be a man, and you can be everything like sort of mixed up. Obviously, there's like loads of people who disagree with that. That's how I feel, and I think that that's really accurate. And if you disagree with me, I don't care. But it wasn't until I really spoke to people who were women with penises, basically, that I was like, oh, okay, hello, this is something that I can be. When I was younger, like I'd only spent time around trans women who had had lower surgery. And so I always thought, well, that had to then be, that was like a part of it. Like if you are a trans woman, that then means you want to get your genitals taken off and changed into something else. And obviously that is part of it for so many people, but it's also not part of it for so many people. But yes, that I guess is where I'm up to now. That's my big update. If you've managed to make it all the way to the end of this video, thank you for listening to me ramble on about self-indulgent crap. It's not self-indulgent crap, that's not fair, I shouldn't say that. Thank you for letting me ramble on about myself. I feel like sometimes these gender videos can be a little bit self-indulgent, but the reason I'm doing it is because so many people told me that they found that video really helpful. And by me talking about things, people have found that helpful. And I got to this position in my life with my gender because I listened to other people talking about themselves. So that's why I thought I would do this, because if it can help just one person, it's all worthwhile. Comment down below in this video if you made it all the way to the end. I want you to put some coconuts an emoji of some coconuts in the comment below so that I know you managed to make it all the way to the end. And anyone who comes onto the thing, they see coconuts, they're gonna be like, why coconuts? Sending you all so much love and so much gratitude.